Hi, I'm Sharon. Welcome to my Theory Tuition series where I'm working with you step by step through each of the ABRSM theory grades. Once you've completed your music theory and practice workbook, past papers are an excellent revision resource, and I've worked with you through the papers of 2014 right the way through to 2018 past papers, and now I'm thrilled to be able to bring to you 2019 as well. There are lots of resources available to help you on my website. If you go to sharonbill.com, you'll find some free PDF information sheets which you can download in US letter or A4 to accompany each step of this series. You'll find a page there with links to all of my YouTube video tutorials, and you can also find out about the books that I have available. I've written an exam technique guide, how to take your ABRSM Music Theory Exam. It's full of tips and hints on how to best be prepared for your exam and also how to make the best use of your time on exam day. So if you visit sharonbill.com, you'll find it's all there. If you can give me a like, that would be really super, and please do subscribe to my channel and share out the videos. And now we're going to continue with Paper A, Question 6 from the Grade 3 2019 Practice Paper booklet. So if you turn with me to page 5, we can get going. So we have a couple of things to do here. We need to add the correct clef and the key signature to each of these tonic triads. Now, I always suggest that you write out your keys. If you use the circle of fifths and just write out all of your keys, just write down to the number of sharps and flats that you need to get to. You don't need them all for this grade. And if you're not sure how to do that, if you go to my playlist Music Theory for Everyone and find a video explaining the circle of fifths in full, it's much better to write that down straight away, and then you're only thinking of the information once, not getting stressed trying to keep on recalling this to mind. So do check out that video and get the circle of fifths nicely under your belt, and then that's easy peasy. And so the first part, adding the correct clef, shouldn't be too much of a problem, because for this to be B minor, our tonic, our bottom note, the first note of the triad, needs to be B. And for that to be the case, this must be in the treble clef, because there's middle C. If you remember, if you imagine a piano keyboard, middle C is at the bottom of the treble, the top of the bass. If you're meeting in the middle, that's a good way of visualizing it. And so one step below that is B. So this is the treble clef. And we know that B minor is related to D major, and using your circle of fifths, you can see B minor is related to D major, and it has a key signature of 2 sharps, F sharps and C sharps. So position those correctly in the treble clef, and there we go, that's job done. So have a go with this on your own first of all, and then just press pause, have a go, and then re-access into the video, and we'll work through these together. It's just better to work through on your own to begin with. You'll learn, even if you make your mistakes, it doesn't matter. Always work in pencil, and you can just erase any mistakes, and you'll learn more thoroughly that way. So here we have the tonic triad of C sharp minor, which must be C sharp, E, G sharp, but you know that's got to be a C, E, G of some sort. The key signature will take care of everything else, and for that to be a C, E, G, that needs to be bass clef. It's a bit tricky with all these ledger lines, but G, we know that's a G, good boys deserve, and you can always count it backwards to double check. G, F, E, D, C. Now C minor, C sharp minor I should say, is related to E major, which is a key signature of 4 sharps, F, C, G, D. You could even just sketch that out just to help yourself. Just make any notes you need to. You can always rub it out afterwards. And so, finish the clef there. So positioning those correctly in the bass clef, F, C, G, D. There we go. So here this needs to be B flat major. So obviously this needs to be a B flat. And so remember, middle C is at the top of the bass, so one below that would be B, so this is the bass clef. And then B flat major has a key signature of 2 flats, B flats and E flats. So positioning those carefully in the bass clef, B flats and E flats, there we go. and pressing on. So for this to be E flat major, this needs to be an E flat. So for this to be an E, this needs to be the treble clef, F, A, C, E. So treble clef. And then E flat major has B flats, E flats and A flats in the key signatures, so positioning those appropriately for the treble clef. There we go. So F minor. So for this to be an F, it needs to be bass clef because we know that's a G, good boys deserve. G, one below G is F. So now that's appropriately F, A, C. And then F minor, check your circle of fifths, is related to A flat major, which has a key signature of B flats, E flats, A flats and D flats. So we can now pop that in the key signature. There we go. So you see, if you've done your thinking in one stint by writing out your circle of fifths, you've done all the hard work already, and that makes that much easier. So I would suggest that you do really check out the circle of fifths video in the playlist Music Theory for Everyone. You'll find the links in the cards and in the description. So let's press on to the next question. So question 7 asks us to rewrite this melody using notes and rests of twice the value. So we're doubling, so we need a new time signature, and then we're going to have to change the way that we beam the notes to reflect this new time signature. Now we can't change the musical effect, so both little pieces need to stay in 4 beats in a bar. They need to be quadruple time, otherwise you'd be changing the musical effect. This is 4 crotchets, 4 quarter notes per bar. And so to double that for twice the value, we need to now double this unit. And so we're now counting 4 minim beats or 4 half notes per bar. So that's how we know to sort the time signature out. So our top number has got to be 4, but now the bottom number to represent half notes or minim beats is number 2. And so basically now, to double the value of everything, we just knock off a beam. So they become crotchets or quarter notes instead of quavers, eighth notes. So knock off a beam. And then here that will double from a crotchet to a minim, so we know we're not going to colour that one in. Knock off a beam, so that will just become a quaver and eighth note, that will become a crotchet. Knock off a beam. You could always just sketch that to remind yourself. So this has got to double, this is a quaver rest or an eighth note rest, so that will become a crotchet or a quarter note rest. So here that's a minim, and so that will become a semi-breve or a whole note. So there we go, knock off a beam. That one won't need colouring in. Knock off a beam as it were, knock off that little arm, knock off a beam. That one won't need colouring in, we're doubling that to a minim. Knock off a beam, then again we don't need to colour that one in. Knock off a beam, that one won't need colouring in. And then that will be the 2 beat minim rest. Just be careful with your rest. Remember, the whole note, the semi-breve rest, hangs off the 4th line. Just watch out you don't get those two confused. So we can now get the blobs in place. I'm just going to do the note heads. I'll worry about the stems afterwards because we're going to have some decisions to make there. I just know that I don't need to colour in this note E. If you take things a step at a time, it just helps you not make mistakes by trying to deal with too many things at once. So we know that's going to be changed. So I'm keeping everything nicely aligned so I don't get lost. I've got enough to be thinking about without wondering which note I'm on. I can think already, I've thought about just knocking off the little arm of that. That doesn't need colouring in. That doesn't need colouring in. There we go. And then that. There we go. So that's a lot of the thinking done. Now the stems here are going to come the same way. But we don't need to beam those. And so actually, because this isn't going to be beamed, we can follow the rules properly now that can go down because it's above the middle line. This one can go either way. So we can do the stems as appropriate because we don't need to join them. So this one won't need a stem at all. So here, oh, I shouldn't have coloured that one in. There we go. See that also, because I'm going through it again, it's given me a chance to double check what I'm doing. There we go. So that will be that. They've done the stem down, so I think we will do the same. It could go either way. There we go. Let's just double check this now. That's tied. And that will stay tied because we need to show each half note, each minning beat. So you see there's minning beat 1, there's minning beat 2, there's minning beat 3, there's minning beat 4. So we wouldn't change that to a minim or a half note because we need to split and divide it to show each new beat. So we still need that tie. This needs to be a quaver, just double check myself there. I've got that little beam there. That doesn't need to change. There we go. And so I would have made a few mistakes there if I hadn't just sort of gone through it again and checked. And so it's a good idea to just take things a stage at a time, and then that way you can keep double checking yourself. So there we go, that's that complete. Once you've done your thinking here, most of it's just copying carefully and just making sure you're watching to double the notes appropriately. So there we go, let's press on to the next question. So now we have a little bit of revision to do in terms of our musical directions, our performance directions, the musical terms I should say. Now if you go to your PDF, if you go on screen or if you've printed them off, you'll see I've given you a little test at the end of this grade, but don't forget it's all of grade 1, all of grade 2 and all of grade 3 terms. And if you look in the previous grades, I give you a little test and I also give you some revision tips because this is just going to keep on building up and accumulating. So I do suggest you take a little bit of time and have a good old revise of those using some of the suggestions I've given you. You can buy flashcards and things, but there's no need to buy things if you want to just do a little bit of revision with me there. Oftentimes you can sort of see the root words, so it's not always going to be sort of guessing. You can see the root words that will help you to understand the meaning. So andante, this comes from your grade 1, which is basically it literally means at a walking pace. So here we have at a medium speed. So tempo is to do with time. Tempus fugit, time flies. Tempo, you can see the root word tempo. Commodo, if you think commodious or accommodating. So a commodious, comfortable speed. Now we know from grade 1 that largo means slow, and we're just sort of now qualifying that a bit more, and it literally means broadly now. It's sort of a wider sense of the word. But we can see the link to the largo slow there. So tempo, we've already dealt with that. Tempo, time. So a tempo, in time. SF. Now F means forte, which is loud. And this means forced or accented. It's kind of, in my head, this isn't a literal translation, but just the way I remember it, it's like a suddenly loud, suddenly forced and accented. Just the way my abstract brain works there. Whatever you do to revise, just make sort of mental notes. And the more bizarre you make it, the more memorable it becomes. So just finding ways to sort of hook into the meanings of these words. And this is from your grade 1, and you've probably use this as you're playing lots of times. It's a repeat mark where you bounce between the dots for a repeated section. So that's the end of that question. I do hope that's been helpful to you. I hope it's helping you with your studies. I hope that you're enjoying it and getting to grips with your studies. I'm certainly enjoying working through it with you. please do go to sharonbill.com and make sure that you make the most of all of the resource and information that's available to help you there. If you can give me a like and a subscribe, that would be super, and please do share out the videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.